Welcome back to Silverstone, everybody. Our second Ginetta race action of the weekend, and it is the turn of the Ginetta Junior Championship drivers, the youngsters, the youngest drivers here at Silverstone this weekend to take to the track and entertain us all, and I'm sure that's exactly what they will do. If there are two ingredients guaranteed to provide you great racing, it's the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit and a bunch of Ginetta Junior drivers in these always competitive Ginetta G40 Juniors. This is the perfect track in many ways for this category of car. It's wide open, it's fast, there are plenty of opportunities for slipstreaming and overtaking, and we've seen over the years some really close finishes here at Silverstone as well. Fingers crossed that it will provide another one of those over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. The Ginetta Juniors had three tremendous races last time out on the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit. Two race wins went the way of Rocco Coronel in the end, son of former World Touring Car star Tom, but the first of the three races was won by Alfie Slater. So our racing were victorious across all three races, but two of their drivers who were setting the pace. It is not our racing on pole position for this one though. Torrin Byrne for pace performance put in a blistering time in qualifying, 7/10 quicker than anybody else to go to the top of the times. Fred Green for Elite Motorsport is second, and the championship leader Rocco Coronel, we caught a glimpse of him there, the Red Bull-backed junior, starting from third on the grid. The qualifying format for the Ginetta Junior Championship is a little bit different to your traditional qualifying sessions. They, first of all, only get 2 flying laps over the course of the session, so you only get 2 chances to set a good lap time. And bear in mind that second fastest lap time usually decides the grid for a race a little bit further on in the weekend as well, so it's important that both laps are quick. You then also are released from the pit lane at set intervals. I think Mike Simpson from Ginetta was telling me before it's 5 or 10 seconds you're released from the pit lane separately from everybody else. And what makes that really interesting, especially around a circuit like Silverstone where the slipstream is so powerful, is that you don't get one of those qualifying sessions where it's just all about whether you had a good tow or not. That will decide often the starting positions in a category like this. In Ginetta Juniors, that's not the case. It is the raw pace of each driver in completely clean air with no assistance from a slipstream that will decide the qualifying times. All of that being said, it makes this qualifying effort from Torrin Byrne even more impressive. Torrin Byrne, 7/10 of a second quicker than Fred Green in qualifying earlier on today. To put that into context, the next 7/10 of a second would take you all the way back to the back end of the top 10. So Torrin Byrne was a country mile ahead in qualifying this morning. However, don't switch off assuming that this is going to be a boring race that Torrin Byrne utterly dominates, because this is the Ginetta Junior Championship. They will very much have an opportunity now to use their slipstreaming tactics, and I'm sure that that is going to produce a much closer race than that qualifying session would suggest. And indeed, there's no guarantee that Torrin Byrne will even end up on the podium, given how competitive the grid is for 2025. But it's good to see Torrin, the pace performance team, really making a bit of a name for themselves, actually. Torrin is 5th in the championship after the 2 races at Donington Park, picked up a podium finish in the middle race and was a solid top 5 or 6 contender all weekend long. So it's not a huge surprise, maybe, to see car number 18 on pole position. Alongside Torrin on the front row, Fred Green for Elite Motorsport. Then the points leader, Rocco Coronel, has Ethan Carney, the American, for company on row 2. Alfie Slater and Joseph Smith are on the 3rd row of the grid, with Scott Lindblom and Colin Cronin on row 4 together. 5th row, Jarrett Clark and the Australian George Proudfoot-Nalder, another nationality represented on this grid that features drivers from, I think, about 7 or 8 different countries, maybe more. It is then Felipe Reich and Emilio Del Grosso on row number 6. Row 7, Max Cuthbert and South African driver Ethan Lennon, with Harry Bartle and Matthew Chivara on row number 8. 9th row for Freddie Lloyd and Irishman Josh Henry. Reeve Lake and Josh Watts share the 10th row of the grid, and it's row 11 for Henry Cameron and Raul Zunzaran, a Spanish driver on row 11. Row 12, Katrina E and Noah Young, and Felix Livesey at the back of the grid. Now, Felix Livesey probably shouldn't be at the back of the grid, but Felix, along with Noah Young, both had all of their qualifying times disallowed for exceeding track limits, and that's always a talking point here at Silverstone. Because you're so limited, you only get those 2 timed laps in qualifying. You're so limited on the amount of opportunities basically that you have to set a quick lap, it is very possible that one or two of your efforts can be disallowed, and it often leads to some slightly jumbled grids in these Silverstone races within the Ginetta Junior Championship. So Rocco Coronel and Alfie Slater, I mentioned, were the top two in the championship after the opening rounds at Donington Park. That, meanwhile, is your onboard camera onboard Torrin Byrne, the pole sitter. Torrin fifth in the points. Between Torrin and the top two were Fred Green and Colin Cronin. So Fred Green, who's on the front row of the grid, could be in a good position here to try and creep properly onto turns with the leading two in the championship. I know it's early days. We've got a 24 race season in 2025. There are dropped scores to come into play a little bit later on as well, but Fred would like to try and bridge that gap, as would Torrin, to the leading two. There's also a teams championship to think of, and I think this is going to be really fascinating this year. We're very used to talking about our racing versus elite motorsport, and our racing definitely took the advantage out of Donington Park. They're 53 points to the good over elite at this stage, but pace performance are going to be a thorn in their side, I think, all season long. They're only 28 points back from elite in second after that season opener. Pace performance charge very much being led by Torrin Byrne, but they also have Ethan Lennon running with them in 25. Ethan can creep his way up inside the top 10. There are more points potentially that could head the way of that team. So on board, cameras up and down the grid. This, I believe, is Emilio Del Grosso, number 5. And those onboard cameras are going to provide a really fascinating view of the racing over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. You should hopefully be able to appreciate just how close these drivers race together. We saw some fabulous side-by-side racing at Donington, particularly in race 1 of the weekend, and all of the niceties sort of went out of the window after that, but race 1 was a really, really good example of good, hard, but clean and fair racing. And around a circuit like this, you would expect the majority of the field to be running bumper to bumper for the entire 20 minutes. And indeed 2, 3, and perhaps even 4 abreast at times. The long run down the Hanger Straight in particular is a great opportunity to make some moves. So cars at the back of the grid then are in position. Felix Livesey, the last of those to pull into place. Noah Young alongside. The red lights go on. Round number 4 of the Ginetta Junior Championship for 2025 gets underway now. And it's a pretty even start, I think, from both of the front row starters, Torrin Byrne and Fred Green. Fred possibly slightly quicker reactions. Has he got to the inside of the pole sitter? Yes, he has. So Fred Green already will challenge for the lead through Copse Corner. Side by side further back on the outside line, that was Jarrett Clark's number 55, the first to be shuffled wide at Copse Corner. It is side by side for the race lead though, and this is a real attack here from Fred Green. He's being given a shove by Rocco Coronel into Maggots and Beckett's, and it's Green who hits the front. Coronel tries to go with him into second place, and I think that might just work. Ooh, Torrin Byrne leans on the championship leader ever so slightly, but the Red Bull liveried machine is up into second place. So Rocco Coronel took full advantage of Fred Green's good start there actually to benefit himself and move up into second spot. Wide over the curb goes the number 11 of Henry Cameron further down the order. But now, well, it's Pot Luck, quite frankly, who arrives at Stowe Corner as the race leader because the slipstream is so powerful down that Hanger Straight. I think somehow Fred Green has held on, but charging round the outside, Torrin Byrne, I was going to say, tries to get back into second place, might actually lose third position here. That's one of the R Racing cars, leaving Torrin Byrne absolutely no room. They lean on each other down the hill. Torrin Byrne bounces over the grass. I think that is Alfie Slater to our right, and Torrin Byrne is putting up a real fight to hang on to third place. It's ultimately not going to work though, because through goes Slater into third position. Can Byrne get in line in fourth? Yes, I think he does. He's waving at Alfie Slater saying, right, let's work together. Come on, don't let the leaders go. He's giving a thumbs up, I think, to the driver behind, who must be also part of this plan. And they set off after the leading contenders once again. The second Red Bull liveried car is Scott Lindblom, by the way, Swedish driver, 7th position, halfway round the opening lap. The leading two, though, starting to make a little bit of a break, perhaps. Lindblom up the inside, Torrin Byrne is wide, and there's contact. Around goes the pole sitter, and crunch was collected by another car, I think. And that is such a shame for Torrin Byrne after that awesome qualifying effort to now be potentially out of the race. Only 2/3 of the way round lap 1 is not what he deserved, but he was on the outside, and I think Scott Lindblom came charging up the inside. I'm not convinced either driver knew that the other was there, and unfortunately that sent Torrin Byrne into the spin. I think Torrin has continued at the back, so maybe that secondary contact wasn't quite as serious as I feared. So it's going to be a very jumbled order at the end of the opening lap, and they're still sorting it out. That was Joseph Smith nipping up the inside of Scott Lindblom, who was wide at Brooklands. So Lindblom, who was briefly 4th, drops back down to 5th position now, having started 7th. That's still a net gain through all of the lap 1 shenanigans. Wide line there slightly for Alzanzaren, the number 3 machine. As they come around to the end of a breathless opening lap, it's Fred Green and Rocco Coronel out in front. Alfie Slater a little bit on his own, really, in 3rd position. Then a gap back to 4th place Joseph Smith, the blue and white Elite Motorsport car. Scott Lindblom 5th, Ethan Carney 6th, 7th position then for Colin Cronin, with George Proudfoot-Nalder in 8th place. That will all probably be out of date by the time they arrive down at the end of the Hangar Straight this time around. The interesting thing for me then here is to see what happens between that leading group, because for now I think Rocco Coronel, there they are, is going to be very, very happy to sit behind Fred Green and try and work together to get away from the rest of the jostling pack. Alfie Slater in 3rd might just be close enough to get a bit of a slipstream from the leading 2. Be interesting to see whether he could go with them or not. And then does the group behind work together, or do they start knocking lumps out of each other in their pursuit of 4th place? Answer, well, I think we can see what's happening, can't we? Because Scott Lindblom finds himself the meat in an elite sandwich as Ethan Carney tries the outside, and Joseph Smith defended the inside line. And all of this will allow those leading 3 to get away from this baying pack of cars debating 4th position. Oh no, around goes Smith, all on his own that was. Just lost the rear of the car through the left-hand part of the club chicane, and he's got to wait for a gap in the traffic. Finds one eventually, but will be shuffled almost right to the back of the field. Look, just ahead of the number 11 machine, that's Henry Cameron. So Henry Cameron will be just ahead of Torrin Byrne, who was 25th and last at the end of the opening lap. So riding on board, I think, here with Torrin. He's had a pretty torrid start to the race, but there is an opportunity still to gain some places out of this. Look at this, though. They're 3 abreast ahead. Torrin Byrne positions himself to the outside into Village because everyone else has gone to the inside. Now, this didn't really work for Torrin a lap ago. Hopefully keeps it cleaner this time around. We'll have to wait and see whether they came out of that unscathed. I think they did. That, meanwhile, is the 53 car, the red and black. Oh, that's Ethan Carney. So Ethan Carney's lost a whole heap of places on the opening lap or so of this race. All the way down in 9th position or so. As side by side they run into Brooklands corner. Inside line there is 75 Cronin. Outside is 25 George Proudfoot-Nalder. Those two have swapped positions on this lap. They all fight for the inside line at Luffield. It all gets a bit stock car-ish there because you don't want to be stuck on the outside at Luffield. It's a corner that never seems to end. And if you end up on the outside looking in, you could be shuffled right to the back of the pack. So there's a real scrum to try and get to the inside line. Across the line they go. So leading 2 are both in the 39.3s. That is 8/10ths quicker than Slater in 3rd. So they are getting away at the moment from Slater in 3rd position. Slater, in fairness, though, 6/10ths quicker than the group behind. Oh, this was Torrin Byrne. He was on the grass, actually. I hadn't spotted that. This is what led to the spin on the opening lap. So he was actually off the track turning into Village and then met in the middle just about there with Scott Lindblom. Wing mirror goes flying off the R Racing car. Around goes Torrin Byrne. Now, I thought Torrin had been collected by another car here. Maybe that wasn't the case. The super slow-mo camera perhaps will show just how close George Proudfoot-Nalder came. Oh, there was a tiny touch, but I actually thought that was a bit more significant than that. I hadn't realised that Byrne had been on the grass either on the way in. There's the final clout, and there, as he rotated, a glancing blow with George Proudfoot-Nalder, but I thought that might have been a more significant bit of contact than it actually was. Race leader, by the way, being warned about track limits already. We're only on lap 3 of the race, so Fred Green and Rocco Coronel, they may be working together at the moment, but Rocco's mere presence in the mirrors of the race leader might just force a few mistakes out of Fred Green. And of course, if Green picks up a track limits penalty, then Rocco Coronel won't ever need to overtake him on track. So I doubt that's really what Rocco is thinking, but it might end up falling into his lap if another track limits issue heads the way of Fred Green. Board further down the order, that's the number 5 machine, Emilio Del Grosso, who we're on board with. As we turn through the right-hander at Abbey, someone's got grass tracking ahead and will have to rejoin at the end of that grassy section. Keep an eye to the left. There's a car rejoining. It's one of the R Racing cars, and they're going to have to go right round the outside. It's almost like a long lap penalty, that, isn't it? It's the 34. Oh, and they're not the only one, actually, who's taken the same sort of line. Max Cuthbert is followed by the number 22 of Josh Watts, both of them finding themselves off the road going through Abbey and not able to rejoin it until they turn into the loop. That's gained Torrin Byrne another position now, so Torrin should be inside the top 20 at this stage. Leading two, though, well, they just need to keep it as it is right now and settle it in the final couple of laps. I don't really anticipate Rocco Coronel going for a move as long as he can see they're getting away from Alfie Slater in third. Head out of Luffield corner and through Woodcote to end. Only the third lap of the race. We've crammed a lot of excitement into the first 3 laps. Still 12 minutes to go. Rocco Coronel then inches up behind Fred Green, may even elect to give him a shove down the straights. Bit of bump drafting is not uncommon around here in Ginetta Junior Racing. There we can see an example of it nearly between the number 3 of Raul Zanzaran and was that Reevy Lake behind in the 83? I think it was. Reevy was involved in a couple of incidents at Donington Park last time out, so good to see Reevy so far, touch wood, keeping it nice and clean. There goes Torrin Byrne. Yes, Torrin 20th now. You can see actually there the damage that was done to the left rear corner of the number 18 car after George Proudfoot Nalder sort of bounced off it whilst it was spinning up at Village on that opening lap. But Torrin trying to piece through the order. Well, sometimes putting an onboard camera on the pole-sitting car is not the wisest choice because often you have a race of just empty racetrack in front of you. That was never that likely, this being a Ginetta Junior race, but I don't think we ever could have expected to have these sort of views from the front of Torrin Byrne's car. But we get to see firsthand now how you best go about picking your way back through the order after an early setback. Not really closing in, though, noticeably on the cars ahead, at least down the Hanger Straight, but as they start battling through Stowe, that should then produce an opportunity for Torrin Byrne to get the run down the hill, perhaps. At the bottom of the hill, they'll be greeted by the club chicane. Oh my word, they're almost 3 abreast as they turn in. 31 at the front of that group. Now that's Felix Livesey, remember. He started from the back of the grid after those track limits indiscretions in qualifying and has worked his way right to the front of this little group now, so won't be a million miles away from the top dozen or so places now, Livesey. In fact, yes, 13th he is as they head down the Sir Lewis Hamilton Straight. Behind is 73, that is Harry Bartle. And then the rest of them all sort of going into position behind. Got the number 40 as well in there of Joshua Henry. Ooh, big lunge up the inside. That was a good move by the number 7 R Racing car, Felipe Reich, who has picked up 15th place. I think that's 15th place. It's changing almost by the corner. Torrin Byrne wide up the curb. Has, I think, just got ahead of the 83 around the Village and Loop sequence of corners. Right on board with Torrin, the pace performance car moving forward. Well, he's making an overtake and has time to take his left hand off the wheel and rest it on his knee. That was fantastic stuff that we can only see because of the onboard cameras. Oh, there's a car pointing the wrong way in the background. Someone's got around at Brooklands. It's the 95, and there was always likely to be someone, I think, that got shuffled out. It was Noah Young, unfortunately, who ended up pointing briefly the wrong way, but has rejoined with seemingly not any serious damage done. That's another place then, I think, for this man, Torrin Byrne. Number 18 then heads across the timing line. What position is Torrin in now? 18th place. I'm not convinced that car is working quite as well in a straight line as it should be. That onboard down the Hanger Straight last time certainly suggested that he wasn't gaining as much in the slipstream as I expected him to. And a change at the front of this group. I think that Livesey, well, he had lost a position to the number 15 of Joseph Smith, but he's now back up the inside through Beckett's. Joseph hangs tough around the outside in the blue and black car, though, and that gives him the inside for the left-hander, the outside for the right-hander. It's a bit of a battle to try and get to the inside at a decisive point around the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Torrin Byrne there is, no, it's not Torrin Byrne, is it? That is Emilio Del Grosso, I think, gaining a place as there. Scott Lindblom takes third away from Alfie Slater, or does he? Because he's wide at Stowe, and Slater will happily take that podium place back. But shows you how much pace that Slater's losing, because he was a couple of seconds ahead of Lindblom not that long ago. Lindblom's got good pace because he's pulled away from Colin Cronin in 5th, and as I said, has now caught up and was briefly into 3rd place. It was the 32 car, actually, Ethan Lennon, who I'd seen the other pace performance car on the grass down the Hanger Straight. That perhaps explains why Emilio Del Grosso has gone through and brings now with him the number 34 of Max Cuthbert. And Cuthbert might get 2 for 1 here. He's had a really good run out of Club Corner, gets to the inside of Del Grosso. He was being given a bit of a shove there by the pace performance car behind, and I think he and Lennon are both going to go through. They do, although Lennon was exiting stage left, I think. Is Ethan Lennon still there? No, I don't think he is, because we're on board with Del Grosso. We're taking the apex through Farm, sorry, and then as they arrive at Village, he nips over the grass and rejoins the circuit behind that pair. So Cuthbert then to the front of this group, which I think will be 10th place now for Cuthbert. Leaders, meanwhile, at Brooklyn, still working together. Not even a hint of an attack coming from Rocco Coronel. Oh, no, it's all gone wrong. That's Livesey, is it, who's pointing the wrong way at the loop. Someone else is off as well. That's the 73 of Harry Bartle. I did see in the back of shot this group coming into Village, and I think they were at least 3, nearly 4 wide. Wasn't the most shocking thing to see someone pointing the wrong way moments after. I think it is the 31 of Livesey we've lost from this group. Yes, it is, and there's maybe damage to the number 7, is there, of Felipe Reich. His left front corner looked like it was locking up a little bit more than you'd expect into Brooklands. So leading 2 are now 5.2 seconds clear of the 2 cars battling over 3rd. Although again, I think Lindblom and Slater will probably work together now in the hope that the leaders soon start to battle. And that may just allow that second pair of cars to start catching the first. There go the leaders though. Fred Green, well, he's getting used now to having Rocco Coronel in his mirrors, I think. And touch wood, haven't seen any further track limits warnings or penalties going his way. Lots of drivers are being warned about track limits, almost too many to go through, but the race leader not yet picking up another warning, which is good news. This is the battle going on outside of the top 4. It's for 5th position, I believe this. The number 25 car, that's George Proudfoot-Nalder at the front of this group now. He's got ahead of Colin Cronin. And they've got the recovering Ethan Carney on the outside. Look, the red and black number 53 car. So Ethan Carney, who got shuffled right down the order on the opening lap, is well back inside the top 10 now. And picking up places corner by corner. There might be more opportunities to do so here because he goes to the outside of a very defensive George Proudfoot-Nalder, and that will allow him to go past Cronin. I think he's got the inside on Cronin into the second part of Club, and he will go through. They both drift wide though, and that's an opportunity for the number 67 to get to the inside of both of them and gain 2 places. Really good racecraft there. That's that typical move that you see through the Club chicane. Freddie Lloyd, the 67, started 17th on the grid, and well, this will put him now nearly into the top 5. Fantastic driving from Freddie. The Fox Motorsport driver, 6th place I think that puts him now, with Cronin trying to come back through. Everyone always fights for the inside line into a big braking zone, and sometimes it's better just go around the outside of the lot of them. Sort of what we saw play out there through the Club chicane. Got 55 on the back of this group as well, which is Jarrett Clark, who started 9th on the grid. Leaders at Brooklands, 4 minutes 20 to go, so they're going to have 2 more laps after this one. At what point, I wonder, will we see the leaders, and indeed the 2 cars battling over 3rd, really start to go at it? Probably not until the very final lap, really. Rocco Coronel and Alfie Slater won't want to give their the drivers they're battling with, Fred Green and Scott Lindblom respectively, any opportunity to retaliate, so they'll probably leave it until the very final lap, you would imagine. On the inset there, by the way, you can see Torrin Burns up to 14th place now. Next target is the number 15, Joseph Smith, who started 6th on the grid. So 2 quick drivers together there. Joseph appears to be at the front of that next group of cars, so maybe that's as far as Torrin Burn will be able to get. Big lunge up the inside into Copse Corner. That was Cronin on the inside of Lloyd. This is for 6th position, and that was a very bold move for Colin Cronin into Copse. Now he's got alongside, but will have lost a bit of momentum as a result. They're banging doors into Maggots and Beckett's. Lloyd does not want to let Ethan Carney through as well here. Carney, of course, another elite motorsport driver going with his teammate, and off goes Lloyd. So this might well favour the 2 elite cars. Lloyd will rejoin and try to get back in line in front of Ethan Carney, who's having none of it. But yes, there's just a Ginetta G40-sized gap for Lloyd to slot into. And he actually judged that pretty well. Might now even have a run on Cronin as they head down towards Stowe Corner. But look, he's got the run. He doesn't really want to go to the outside though, because Freddie knows that that might open the door for Ethan Carney, or then again, he might just sweep right round the outside of Cronin. That was very brave on the brakes. He's not quite made the apex, though, and Cronin will get back alongside him. They'll go side by side down the hill. In fact, they won't, because Cronin's cleared Freddie Lloyd already. He blocks the inside then, so his Elite Motorsport teammate Ethan Carney goes to the outside. They clamber the curb on the inside line at the club chicane, and they all come out in roughly the same order that they were going into that sequence of corners. Cronin at the front of the group. This, meanwhile, is the race lead battle, and I think it is a battle now. Rocco Coronel is trying to make his move with a lap and a half to go. Gets to the inside into Village. He's got his nose ahead. He's got the preferred line, and Rocco Coronel moves to the front of the field. The double winner from Donington Park a few weeks ago is back in his preferred position, the race lead. But has he gone too early? This will give Fred Green a lap and a bit now to think of a way of getting back through. And crucially, Fred will have the slipstream down all of these long straights for another lap. There's a 5-second penalty for Freddie Lloyd, that's a shame, for exceeding track limits. So Freddie Lloyd will drop out of what was at the start of the lap, 6th position. He's now 7th. Here comes Fred Green then, immediately trying to come back at Rocco Coronel. Tries the outside line at Brooklands. He's still got his nose there. Coronel will want to close the door. Is able to close the door, I think, just about, before they get into the right-hand hairpin at Luffield. But yeah, interesting tactic here for Rocco Coronel to go early. I notice in the background it is still Lindblom third, so Alfie Slater either has chosen not to make his move or just hasn't been able to make his move yet. We'll see who's got the right strategy, won't we, as these two-way battles play out over the final lap of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. It is Rocco Coronel who leads them onto the final lap then. Fred Green in his wheel tracks in second. This the battle for third. Similar story, really, with an R Racing Red Bull liveried car ahead, except in that case it's another R Racing car behind, that of Alfie Slater. Colin Cronin's got himself to the front of this gaggle of cars. Then it's the 67 of Freddie Lloyd that has the penalty, and a place gained on that lap for number 55, which was Jarrett Clark. He's managed to get himself up ahead of Cuthbert. They've been joined now by Ethan Carney, Emilio Del Grosso and Ethan Lennon as well. So this is about a 7 or 8 car battle now as they head through Maggots and Beckett's for the final time. If Cronin can keep this lot behind, then he's driven a very strong defensive final lap. Freddie Lloyd actually thinking about the inside line into the right-hander there at Chapel, but not actually close enough to do it. 7 and 75 also being given penalties now for track limits, by the way. Felipe Reich is number 7. 75 is Colin Cronin, that's a shame. So Colin Cronin was at the front of that group, but has a penalty, which will drop him to the back of it. We'll focus on the leaders for now, though. They're half a lap from home, and it's still Coronel ahead, so he's survived the challenge down the Hanger Straight. Oh, off goes Cuthbert into the gravel. Oh, it had to happen. They were 3 wide again, turning into Stowe, and it's Cuthbert who ended up getting spat out of the pack. Will do well to dig his way out of the gravel trap, but a lot of places have been lost. They're still debating it down at Club. It's Cronin somehow still keeping them behind, but it's the 55 machine which is really charging through the pack now, isn't it? Jarrett Clark, well, had picked up another place, but Freddie Lloyd goes back through. Both cars ahead of Jarrett, though, have penalties to come, so as long as he keeps the likes of Ethan Carney and this man, Emilio Del Grosso, behind, he will still hang on to what's going to become 6th position. Abbey they go. Del Grosso a little bit sideways on the way in. I think that was Ethan Lennon going up the inside and gaining a place as they arrive at Village and the Loop for the final time. Hold your breath till they all make it through. Carney ahead of us on the outside line. Del Grosso's also going around the outside. I think that might just work. That'll be the inside of Ethan Lennon into the loop. Late on the brakes as you dare, but don't run into the back of Ethan Carney in front of us. Yep, nicely done for Del Grosso, although he runs wide, gets sandwiched in the middle now. To the inside goes Lennon, to the outside is the 55, and around he goes. Oh no, it's all gone wrong. They're all off the road. Clark got tapped into the 360 spin and sent the other two into the runoff area in avoidance. Rocco Coronel, meanwhile, whilst this has all been going on, has held on to the race lead. Fred Green has one more chance to try and draft alongside as they head out of Luffield and towards the timing line, but I don't think it's going to happen. It will be a 3rd consecutive race victory in the Ginetta Junior Championship for Rocco Coronel. It's Fred Green who comes home 2nd, and Scott Lindblom holds on to 3rd position. So 2 R Racing cars either side of the Elite Motorsport machine on the podium, and Rocco Coronel did very, very well to hold on to that race lead on the final lap. Torrin Byrne's car is falling apart, rather, as it comes across the line, but Torrin Byrne has recovered very nicely there. 12th position for the man who started on pole and was tipped into that spin on the opening lap of the race with a damaged car to boot. That's a very impressive drive from Torrin to end up inside the top dozen, but Rocco Coronel, What can you say? This man on his first season, remember, of Ginetta Junior racing, first season of car racing. What a talented young prospect this man is. And Rocco Coronel, a third win in a row, as I said. He will argue he should have at least been on the podium in the first race at Donington, but just got shuffled out a bit in a couple of the side-by-side exchanges. But what impressed me the most is he learned from that and then demonstrated some really good racecraft across the other two races, which took him to the race win. And it's that strong racecraft which won in this race, really. I questioned whether he'd made the right decision in getting ahead of Fred Green on the penultimate lap of the race, but there's a reason I'm a commentator, not a racing driver, I suppose, and Rocco Coronel knew exactly what he was doing. He was confident enough in his pace and his defensive capabilities that if he hit the front with a lap and a half to go, he'd be able to stay there until the flag, which is exactly what he did. Rocco Coronel claims his third win in a row for R Racing. Fred Green will settle for second position, though, whilst it's third for Scott Lindblom, the two R Racing cars on the podium, and another R Racing car in fourth, Alfie Slater. Then it was George Proudfoot-Nalder with an impressive fifth place. Did well, actually, to escape from some of the madness that was going on behind him. Ethan Carney and Emilio Del Grosso for Elite were next, ahead of Ethan Leonard. Freddie Lloyd and Colin Cronin. Lloyd and Cronin, remember, both picking up 5-second penalties for exceeding track limits. Then it was Joseph Smith and Torrin Byrne recovering from that lap one spin. Jarrett Clark and Max Cuthbert were next, whilst Reedy Lake completes the top 15. Then it was Harry Bartle, Josh Watts, Raul Zanzaram, Matthew Chihuahua and Joshua Henry at the back of the top 20. Henry Cameron, Noah Young and Katrina E were the last of the runners on the lead lap. Felipe Reish pitted and Felix Livesey, unfortunately, didn't make the flag. The fourth round of the Ginetta Junior Championship from the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit was an absolute classic. It was Torrin Byrne who started on pole position, but Fred Green managed to take the lead through the opening few corners and brought with him Rocco Coronel, the championship leader, slipping into second position. Unfortunately, that was really a sign of things to come for Torrin Byrne, who led for the first couple of seconds of the race and then found himself on the outside of a three-wide scramble through Village on lap one. He was tapped into a spin, and there was secondary contact from George Proudfoot-Nalder. The car continued and did recover well to 12th, but that was not the result Torrin Byrne was hoping for. Likewise, there was an early spin for Joseph Smith in the number 15 car down at the club chicane, and he was then embroiled in a brilliant battle that involved a fair bit of traded paint and ultimately a spin for Felix Livesey. Torrin Byrne was able to benefit from this. Livesey tapped into a spin and rejoined towards the back of the field. Freddie Lloyd and Colin Cronin were side by side midway through the race. Both drivers would eventually pick up a 5-second track limits penalty, but they engaged in some brilliant door-to-door racing before that point. With a lap and a bit to go, Rocco Coronel, who to that point had been working with race leader Freddie Green to escape the action behind, made his decisive move into Village, took the lead away and was able to hang on to the flag. There were more shenanigans in the midfield on the final lap, but amazingly we only had one non-finisher after what was at times bruising but always entertaining race. It was the third one in a row won by Rocco Coronel.